Today I'm going to show you how to make some simple cultured vegetables to get you started in fermenting. First of all, I'll talk you through the utensils that you need to use and also the vegetables that I've prepared here today. And then what I'll do is I'll give you a demonstration of how you put all those together. So these are the utensils we're going to use today. First of all, you need a kilner style jar with this type of flip top lid. This allows gases to escape, but it stops any oxygen from getting in. You could use a screw cap jar, but you would need to make sure that you unscrewed it slightly every day just to release any gases. Also, I use these glass ramekins. These are ideal, they fit inside these jars quite nicely and they help to keep the vegetables submerged under the brine. Also a plastic jug just to measure the brine that we put into the jar, some filtered water and also some hot water to dissolve the salt. And these are the vegetables that I've prepared for us to use today. So I've got some cauliflower that I've broken up into florets and also some carrots that they're different coloured carrots that I've chopped up ready to use. I would suggest that you use organic vegetables because they've not got the pesticides and other chemicals on them. I've also prepared some flavourings, so this is garlic and ginger. Works really well with vegetables, but if you've got other flavourings you'd like to use, things like fennel seeds or even chilli, they work well as well. And also I have some salt, so using organic or natural sea salt works really well, and also Himalayan pink salt, both good sources of salt, have minerals in them. You don't want to be using the normal table salt because it's just stripped of all its all the minerals and nutrients in it. So now I'm going to show you how to make your fermented vegetables. First of all, I'm going to take the flavourings. So I've got here some garlic and ginger, and it's good to put it in the bottom of the jar because it then infuses up through the brine mixture. Then you just need to put in your vegetables. Okay, so you can make this look really pretty if you've got a bit more time. I'll put these in here, and you could use a variety of vegetables, so things like fennel work really well, also onions. So you can really experiment with different veggies. Some things like asparagus and broccoli actually go a bit mushy. The heads of them go a bit mushy, so they don't always work so well. But even courgettes sometimes go a little bit mushy, just depends on how long you leave them in the brine. But carrots and cauliflower really stay nice and crispy. So fill this up. And you need to leave just enough room for your ramekin to sit in the top. You don't actually have to use a ramekin, but it's really important that you keep the vegetables submerged under the brine. So you could use a cabbage leaf or something, but for me personally I find that they still end up raising up a little bit and the oxygen can get to them and make them grow mould. So it's these little jars are really handy. Okay, so once you've prepared your vegetables in the jar, you then need to make your brine solution. So you make a 2% brine, which basically is for every litre of water you use 20 grams of salt. So I've already pre-measured my salt. You need to dissolve the salt with some hot water. So that gets that dissolving. Then I'm going to top it up with some filtered water. That's dissolved. Okay, I'm going to fill up to a litre of water. And then by using cold water, you're bringing it down to room temperature. You don't want the water hot when you put it into the vegetables, it just needs to be room temperature. Okay, so then I'm just going to pour the water over my vegetables. I may have to make some more if that's not enough. actually going to just mix up a little bit more. Just to make sure, you just need to make sure that you cover the vegetables in brine. So once you've covered the vegetables, you can then use the ramekin to go, it fits in the top of the jar. I think this might overflow a little bit, so I'm just going to stand it in here. Just I think when the lid goes it might overflow a bit. So any excess water's come out. So that is your brined vegetables prepared and ready to store. So you need to make sure your vegetables are below the water. If any oxygen gets into the jar and touches the vegetables, it's likely that mould will start growing. So what happens is, by covering it in brine, the salt water kills off any less beneficial bacteria in the jar or on the vegetables, and it allows for the lactobacilli species of bacteria to grow, which is your beneficial bacteria. So you can then store that. I suggest you actually leave it on a small tea plate or on a Tupperware container, because as this starts to ferment, you'll get oxygen or carbon dioxide bubbles come up, and it may push some of the liquid out, so it may overspill. So just store it in something that can catch any overflow. And if you notice that the water level starts to drop, which sometimes does happen, then you just need to make up some more brine and just open the jar, not for too long, just literally to open the jar, put the salt water brine in and close your jar again. Now these vegetables should take about 10 days to ferment, but you could leave them for a bit longer. Sometimes I leave mine for a couple of weeks. And once you start wanting to, when you're ready to eat the vegetable, you literally just put the jar in the fridge. You can take the ramekin out, but you can then start enjoying these vegetables with salads, with things like hummus, or just add them as a side dish. So that's a really good starter to get you into fermenting. So moving on from our cultured vegetables, I'm now going to show you how to make a simple sauerkraut. And what I do is I'll talk you quickly through the utensils that we're going to use and the ingredients. Okay, so you need a Kilner style jar like we did before. This is a smaller one. And again, a ramekin or something to keep the vegetables submerged. I've got a jug here just to measure out any brine, and some filtered water and hot water to dissolve any salt. I'm also going to wear some gloves, particularly useful if you use a red cabbage or beetroot, to save you staining your hands. Okay, and then the ingredients here, I've got a chopped white cabbage. This is about 1 kilo of white cabbage. It's sort of a medium head of cabbage. I slice mine by hand, but you could also use a food processor, but you just want some fairly thin strips. I've also got some sea salt, and I'm going to flavour mine today with some fennel seeds, but you could also use things like coriander seed, celery seeds, cumin seeds to give flavour. I'm using fennel seeds because they're particularly good for digestion. And today I'm also going to add in some probiotic supplement, which gives it a bit of a boost for beneficial bacteria. Okay, so I'm just going to put these gloves on, and I'm going to add a head of cabbage, that sort of size, about 1 kilo. You want about 2 tablespoons of salt, and I'm just going to sprinkle it in. And if you find that your sauerkraut is a bit salty, then next time you make it, you can just reduce it a little bit. There's, you know, you want some salt in there to kill off bacteria that you don't want growing in there. But there's no sort of hard and fast rules about exact quantities. So then, once you put the salt in, you literally just need to scrunch this. You need to scrunch it up really firmly. And what happens is, this looks like a lot of cabbage, but the salt will start breaking the cabbage down and it will start drawing water out. And you need to do this for maybe 5 or 6 minutes. Then you can leave it for maybe five minutes. Let the salt action it and draw out some more water. But you can also then just go back to it and give it another 5 or so minutes scrunching. This is really good to take your anger out on a bit of cabbage. Okay, so this is our cabbage after about 5 minutes of scrunching, and you can see there's already quite a lot of liquid that's come out of the cabbage. So what I'm going to do now is add some flavouring. So I've measured out a couple of teaspoons of fennel seeds, and also at this stage you could add in some grated carrot, grated beetroot, any other vegetables that you want to put in. I find that it's better to do that halfway through, because if it's grated it's quite small already, whereas the cabbage is quite big, so it's good, otherwise you break down the carrots and other vegetables too much. You could use a red cabbage instead of white cabbage. Goes really nice with beetroot. And also you could put things like raisins in. You can put turmeric in for the anti-inflammatory properties of it. Gives it a lovely colour as well. I've got some over here that's got some turmeric, and also that one's got pineapple in it, so this is an ideal time to put pineapple in as well, because if you chop it up into little cubes it doesn't break up too much during while you're massaging it. So okay, and then you could leave it now for a few minutes just to allow the salt to draw out some more water, or you could just carry on scrunching for about another 5 minutes, and then we should be ready to assemble it into our jar. Okay, so I've been massaging and scrunching up this cabbage for about 10 minutes, and hopefully you can see there's quite a lot of liquid in there now. So what I'm going to do before I continue is just to say that you can at this stage add a probiotic supplement. I'm using this one, which is a high dose of lactobacillus bacteria, and I'm just going to take 2 capsules and open them and sprinkle them in. You don't actually have to add a probiotic if you don't want to. You're still going to grow beneficial bacteria. This sort of just gives it a helping hand, and also reduces the amount of time that you need to leave it to ferment. Okay, so those go back in there, and I'm just going to put another pair of gloves on. Okay, so what I'll do now is we'll mix this up, and I'll show you how to prepare the sauerkraut. Okay, so like I said, as you can see there's loads of water in this. Just make sure you mix in the probiotic. Okay, so we're ready to put it in the jar. I'll just move these over here. Okay, I'm just going to use a bowl just to put my jar on, just catch any spillage. And then you literally just take the cabbage and fill the jar up to about sort of shoulder height. Really push it down. You want to get as much air out as possible. Surprisingly much from cramming one of these jars. Okay, so that's about shoulder height. Make sure that you can fit whatever you're going to use to weigh down your cabbage, that's going to fit, and the jar's going to actually close. A little bit more. And hopefully all cabbages are different. Sometimes you don't seem to get much water out of them at all, other times you get loads of liquid. This one's actually got quite a lot of water drawn out of the vegetables. So I'm just going to pour that in. Because the same as the cultured vegetables, you need to make sure that you keep the cabbage submerged under the brine. If any cabbage comes to the top and any oxygen is exposed to it, then you will find that mould will grow really quickly. And if you see any sign of mould, then you need to just get rid of your batch of sauerkraut, or your brined vegetables that we showed you earlier. Because just because there might be, don't go scooping it off the top, just because there's bacteria on the top, they have spores that go down into the vegetable, so it's important that you just dispose of it and start again. I've never had to throw any away, so maybe I've been quite fortunate, but sometimes it can be a bit of a trial and error. But hopefully it won't take you long to get the hang of it. Okay, so this is my little jar going in the top, and I've put this in this dish just to catch any excess liquid, and then you just literally seal the jar up, and there you have it. There's your sauerkraut, and as you can probably see, the kraut's here and the jar is keeping it well submerged under the water.